How can we get our mix downs to sound like our favorite tracks? There's a really simple answer to that. If I open up Ableton and I load up a song, any song, for example. Let's just open up probably my Sage remix. That'll be good. So let's open this up, and then we're gonna get on to the next topic, but this one's a real quick one, so I figure we can just go over this real quick. So here is my remix for Sage that I've been working on. It's a short idea. I have it nowhere near complete, but it'll be a good example of what we could be doing to fix this issue. Here is my idea. Just like a nice basic idea, right? And let's say I wanted to get this mix really solid, right? So what I can do is I can go back into my folder library right here, go to not packs, wrong one. Let's go to iTunes. Let's go to music, and let's go to the upbeats again, because I actually liked that tune as a potential reference. Let's grab this track, and I'm just going to pull this into my project, just like we did when we were doing our analysis. Now, what I care about is what happens when this right here, and this is, I know is not the right BPM. It was a, what, 172, so 172 divided by 2 is 86. So let's warp this. I'm going to call this 86. I'm going to set this to beats forward so that we're not having any problems. And I'm just going to try and find the drop, right? Right there. Right there. So, cut this off, pull this right here to the drop. Now, who wants to know how I mix? Watch this. So I can already start to hear differences, because this is the answer to your question. Play spot the difference. What is different, not what's better or worse. Who fucking cares if their song is better or worse than yours? Your song's not done, and you're comparing it to a finished mix. Asking what is good or bad is fucking stupid. And I get it. It's the thing that I used to do all the time. That's why I believe it to be stupid. Because I used to do it. And I only critique the behaviors that I myself have engaged in the past. I don't try and judge people for things I haven't done. But I used to think that I needed to say, oh, well, their song's so much better than mine, so I can't use it as a reference. No, that means you use it as a reference, and you just play spot the difference. So I want everyone to tell me what is different between my song and their song. So their snare is definitely much more up front in the mix. Their song is much, don't say more full. Justin, you're not actually focusing on the right things. More full is not, no. Justin, you're not focusing on what's different. You're just saying there's a difference there. But what do you mean by more full? Carter is nailing it on the head. There's more brightness on the bass. Do you see how? So Avon, again, a lot that doesn't actually tell me what's different, right? A lot of saturation where, on what? Louder. What is louder? Where is it louder? See, this is the important thing. This is what I'm saying. You need to ask what is different. It's not just louder, but what is louder? What is brighter? What is more saturated? The bass is more saturated. Okay, but what about it is different? Saturation isn't difference. Saturation is an effect. Carter said it perfectly. There is more brightness on the bass. So, comparing their bass to my bass, I should be adding higher frequencies to the sound in some way. So the concept here is that we're referencing, right? We're referencing this track and playing Spot the Difference. It doesn't have to be the entire track. It has to be a thing. Because I'm not trying to make that big aggressive thing, but maybe I want my bass to have more presence on it, more high frequencies. Maybe I want my snare notice how their snare has more layers to it. It sounds a little bit punchier, like it's louder or like there's more tone on it. It sounds like on my snare, I have this psh kind of snare. On their track, they have a poof kind of snare, a boof kind of snare. So that's the kind of difference that I'm looking for. And this counts across the mix down, right? If I go into my build, their build, so here's something that might be subtle. My build has more sub. Maybe I should be pulling out the sub bass earlier in my song if this is my reference. It's not a matter of making your song sound exactly like this, right? What we're trying to do is we're trying to, again, play Spot the Difference. We're not trying to grab these overarching things like, oh, it's louder. Okay, but so what does that mean? All I have to do is do this? Okay, let me go to my master. Let me grab game. Okay, now my song's as good as theirs, right? I just made my song as good as theirs. I made it louder, right? That's gonna make my song like theirs. I can't really do stuff with that. Instead, ask questions about what we have. What are the elements? And this is the same reason why I recommend you do those ghost arrangements, because doing the ghost arrangements helps you isolate out the individual elements. What is a mixdown? Can anyone tell me what a mixdown is? It's giving each channel of audio information its own space in the final audio signal, blending sounds together. The process of mixing a multi-track recording. Yeah, thank you, Ebunk. Perfect. What Ebunk is saying is what I was hoping to get. We are mixing a multi-track recording because the key thing in there is multi-track. When we listen to your song, what is here? Is this a song? Or is it this layered with this, layered with these, layered with this, layered with this, layered with this? As you can see, I'm not making a song. Well, I am, but this isn't, it's not like I have Songa as a thing and I am pushing buttons on Songa. I have these individual elements that I'm combining together to create this overarching idea. When I am looking at a reference track, why would I look at it as anything different from what I have? I ask the question, what are their drums doing? What are my drums doing? Then, let's say, what are their basses doing? What are my basses doing? What are their synths doing? What are their vocals doing? What are all of the different things are? The difference in snares. So my snare, if I isolate out my snare, which I think is down here. This snare right here. It's just a nice little kind of doofy snare. But if we look at their snare right there, you can hear it's more tonal. The tone is a little bit longer. It sounds a little bit layered with an acoustic snare. There's almost like an amen break level of tone to it. Like if you listen to the actual snare in Amen Brother, listen to the snare here. Do you hear that? Do you hear how it has kind of like this hollowish tone to it? Yeah, that right there. Compare that snare, right, with my snare. You can immediately tell the difference, right? Now, using those two things as comparison, going back to the reference snare, it's actually a little bit of a blend between the two. I would say theirs is closer to the amen break snare than my snare, but their snare also has a psh kind of layer to it. And their snare has a bunch of distortion on it because their song's way louder than mine, for sure. Hopefully that helps. I would say I know it feels weird to start to try and mentally isolate out something in a reference track, but it's an important skill to learn. And doing step one will teach you how to do it. If you know how to listen into a song, you know how to separate a song out into its elements so that when you're doing a mix reference, you can look at it not in terms of, oh, well, what is their song doing in comparison with my collection of sounds? Instead, what is their collection of sounds doing in comparison with my collection of sounds? And there's an interesting trick here that I think will be a good way to end this, and then we can move on to the next topic, which is just intonation and sound design.